What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, August 21st, we're going to be going over a Superflex mock draft. We're doing 16 teams in this one. I'm going to be picking from the 5th spot. This one was requested, so we're going to fulfill that request finally. Again, he didn't specify what spot we needed to do it at, but we're going to do a 2 QB, 16 teams. I'm going to be drafting from the 5 spot, and we'll see what happens. I'll do my best. Superflex mocks are tricky because basically it's really tough to prep for those. Some of my most important leagues are Superflex, and there's really no good way to mock because a lot of people end up not taking QB early or something like that. So we'll try our best here to get this big 16-team mock draft here. I'll kind of zoom in for a little bit while we're going. But either way, quarterbacks are going to be very heavy at the top of the board. Basically, a top 6-7 pick means I'm going to take a QB. If I wanted to be in the back half of the draft, I might grab, maybe one QB and one stud player. But either way, we're going to claim the 5th overall pick. We'll see what comes back to us here at 212. Let's go ahead and start that draft. Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Jefferson, Josh Allen. I'm on the board. I get my choice of Joe Burrow, Herbert, Lamar Jackson. If I'm sticking to my rankings, I would probably take Lamar Jackson here. He's actually projected for the most points as well at 346. Justin Fields at 339. Joe Burrow 317, or Joe Burrow 334, and Justin Herbert 317. We can try a Lamar Jackson one. I get nervous about. There's a little bit of an injury risk with these running quarterbacks. Lamar, Justin Fields. I know Joe Burrow's already dinged up. My fantasy MVP that I'm putting money on the line this year is going to be Justin Herbert. So I'm going to take Herbert here at the 5th overall pick, and we'll see what can kind of come back to us. Let me zoom back out here, get us into that full 16 view. After I take Herbert, you got Joe Burrow, McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson, and then we get a run of non-QBs. Kelsey, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields go, Bijan, Eckler, Diggs. And now you can see the round 2 is a huge, huge run of non-QB, starting with Bijan, Eckler, Diggs, Kupp, A.J. Brown, Barkley, Chubb, Adams, Lamb, Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. As I'm up to pick here, it's telling me the best players are non-QB. So we do have, if we want a QB2, Tua, Kirk, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson are all on the board here. I don't mind grabbing potentially the best flex player available here. I think I'm going to grab my favorite running back. That's going to be Tony Pollard. I'll see what QB comes back around because I think if we pass on 3.5, we're not getting a fun one back at 412. So I'll grab my best non-QB here at 2.12, and that's going to be Tony Pollard. So we have Herbert and Tony Pollard to start the draft. After I take Pollard, you see Waddle, Tua, Henry, Mark Andrews, Josh Jacobs, Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, and DK Metcalf go. We're back on the board here. There are some really good quarterbacks still out here. We can maybe try and see if one comes back to us at 412, but I'm slightly nervous because look at none of these, there's 6 teams without a QB. I think we're gonna see them all take one. So I'm gonna grab my favorite QB2, and this maybe is a shock. I like Kirk Cousins a lot. I like Daniel Jones a lot. I like Aaron Rodgers a lot. These guys are probably up there in my rankings. I kind of want to take Anthony Richardson. I don't think we're gonna have a chance to get him on the comeback. I'm fine with passing on running back here. We're gonna fill this position out, further along the way. But let's go ahead. I'm going to grab Anthony Richardson here to be my QB2. I'm super excited about Anthony Richardson. I do think he's going to end up being a fringe QB1, and he's got so much upside with his legs that it gets me pretty excited. So Herbert, Pollard, Anthony Richardson is our start. Kirk Cousins, Higgins, Etienne, Stevenson, Brees, Gibbs, Najee. There goes Aaron Rodgers, Mark Cooper, Keenan Allen, and TJ Hawkinson, end of round 3. Beginning of round 4 is Debo, Kittle, Geno, Calvin Ridley, Kenneth Walker. There goes Goff, Hopkins, Russ Wilson, McLaurin, Daniel Jones, and Joe Mixon. So the QBs are not looking great. I might snag one more, but I think we're fine with what we have done so far. If I'm looking around here, it's saying Aaron Jones is the best running back available. Dameon Pierce, J.K. Dobbins, those are the top RBs. Otherwise, receivers, we're looking at Judy, London. I wouldn't mind grabbing one of these stud wide receivers because we already know we have a stud running back, but man, oh man, Aaron Jones looks pretty good to me. I'm going to grab Aaron Jones here to be my running back 2, and then we're basically just going to hammer wide receivers for a while here. Dameon Pierce, Jerry Jeudy. Let me kind of zoom in for you guys. we'll look at my roster settings here too. So a bunch of receivers go, a couple running backs. QBs are still sticking on the board. If I go to the wide receiver portal here, it's basically saying Godwin, Pittman, Ayuk, Kirk. I like Mike Williams a lot. We do have Justin Herbert, so I'm going to grab Mike Williams to stack with my Justin Herbert. Now, the roster formation that I have here is 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex. So I could take another running back if I want. I would like to probably fill my running back and wide receivers, though, with these next couple of picks. Let's recap here what's happening while I'm after I take Mike Will. You see Madison, Waller, Goddard. I love those 2 tight ends. Sanders, Ayuk, Godwin, Derek Carr, Swift, Bryce Young, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. End of round 5. I do think there's value in getting a top tight end in this league because there's not 16 tight ends that are usable. So maybe I look at the tight end here, Pat Freiermuth. We'll see if he can kind of bounce back at 7.5. Otherwise, it's basically telling me Deontay Johnson is available. I love getting Deontay Johnson in a full PPR league, so that might be the move. Now, the sad part about Sleeper, I don't think you can change the settings to be 2 QB full PPR, so I think they're kind of discounting some of the wide receivers here. But I'm going to take Deontay Johnson to be my number 2. Jordan Love, Pacheco, Ingram, Jordan Addison, Kyler Murray goes, CJ Stroud goes, Montgomery goes. I would have loved to grab him, and then David Njoku. So I still have a flex spot open here. Pat Freiermuth is the top tight end available, but I think I can go empty tight end here and figure out a way to get points. Burks, Dotson, these guys are all really good players here. Running backs. James Cook still on the board. I wouldn't mind plugging him in at my running back 3 spot. But again, I feel really strongly about Pollard and Jones. Because I waited for wide receiver, I'm going to triple down on that and go with Jahan Dotson here to be my flex, my wide receiver 3. I do feel pretty good about him. I think he's a fringe top 30, top 36 wide receiver this year. And now our starting lineup is built out for the most part. We got Herbert and Anthony Richardson as our QBs, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones at the running back spots. Our 3 receivers are Mike Williams, Deontay, and Jahan Dotson. Quarterbacks falling here. Jimmy Garoppolo, Mac Jones, Ritter, Tannehill. I don't love these guys here, but if we wanted to pull a QB3, we totally could. Running back, Samaje, Jamal, some interesting guys here. More wide receivers. Elijah Moore is still falling. I like him quite a bit. Tight ends falling a little bit as well. I'll tell you what, I think we're going to double tap wide receiver here. Let's get Elijah Moore as our first wide receiver off the bench. I'm going to come back to running back at some point here. I do feel pretty strongly about my QBs, though, Herbert and Richardson, so I don't know if I need a third, but I'm going to grab 5 straight wide receivers here. And just basically, we just finished our wide receiver room. Mike Will, Deontay, Dotson, Elijah Moore, Sky Moore. I can maybe add a rookie to that and call it good. But I think for the most part, I'm feeling strong at the wide receiver spot. Of course, we got Pollard and Aaron Jones. I do feel good about my running backs. If I were to look at the QB, like Desmond Ritter is still there. We could grab him if we wanted a backup QB. I don't hate that idea. Otherwise, running back, like we could get a starter here in Raheem Mostert, which feels pretty good. I'm actually going to see if Mostert comes back around because the one guy I want you to take away from this video is make sure you draft Jaylen Warren this weekend. He is going to be set up to kind of be like a Tony Pollard-like running back. We've seen the last few years, Tony Pollard's been a really good player in the Cowboys, and now he eventually took over for Ezekiel Elliott. I think Jaylen Warren has that kind of upside in his arsenal here. Receivers are pretty beat up. Again, I mentioned I like waiting on the tight ends. I think we can find a decent group of tight ends to play with. QBs, we're probably not going to see Desmond Ritter come back around. I'm just going to grab a QB3 and see what happens here. We're done at the position. I have 2 more bench spots left. I do have a starting tight end spot as well. So we'll grab a starting tight end and a backup tight end. And then I think 1 more running back should do the trick for us. I didn't put defense and kickers in here because sometimes that really skews the draft, especially in mock draft. I don't really care to mock those guys. So we'll finish up with our 3 picks. I'm seeing some running backs that I don't mind having on our squad here. Kareem Hunt should sign somewhere. Let me see if I can find anybody else. I like Ty Chandler a lot on my bench, but let's go ahead and pull those tight ends. I'm grabbing Jake Ferguson here for the Dallas Cowboys. He's locked and loaded with the starters. He's a really good pass-catching tight end, and he can hold his own in the blocking game. So I'm all in on Jake Ferguson. I think he's a top 15 tight end, and he's going to flirt with top 10, top 12 numbers. And then my other tight end here in my back pocket is Luke Musgrave. The dude's dominating the preseason right now. He's on the field a ton with Jordan Love. He's actually leading the Packers in targets through 2 preseason games with the ones. I think you could legit make Jake Ferguson and Luke Musgrave your 2 tight ends and make it work. So I'm very excited about that duo. And then we're going to finish up with a running back here. I mentioned I like Ty Chandler a lot. I think he is the 3rd down back in Minnesota. They just took Dwayne McBride over him, which is wrong. Ty Chandler is clearly the 2nd back in Minnesota. Just look at the numbers in the preseason usage. Anything happens to Madison, we have the next man up here. And again, I'm feeling confident with Tony Pollard and Aaron Jones all year. I do have Jaylen Warren, who I can whip up there if I need to. But basically, I'm okay with adding running backs throughout the waiver wire. We know that's a position that's kind of plug and play throughout the year. So I'm going to take my shots on these guys now, hopefully lock in Pollard and Aaron Jones for the full season. But let's grab Ty Chandler here, the backup to Alexander Madison in Minnesota. And there you go. That's our draft, guys. I started off with Herbert, round 1. You can insert any quarterback you want, whether it's Burrow or Lamar. I'm fine either way. Pollard round 2 fell to us pretty hard. I reached for Anthony Richardson over guys like Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones. I just think Richardson's going to end up averaging a ton of fantasy points per game. If you haven't seen my other stuff, Tim Tebow averaged 18 points per game in 2011 through 11 games. So I think Richardson's a better player than Tim Tebow. Richardson could be a league winner this year. Love him as a QB2 in Superflex. Aaron Jones at RB2. So we're really strong at running back. Receivers, I think we did pretty good. Mike Will, Deontay Johnson, Jahan Dotson, Elijah Moore, Sky Moore. I really love that group of wide receivers. We need to start 2 of them, and one of them is going to be our flex. We did grab Jaylen Warren here to be our kind of, wild card change of pace guy, and he might outplay Najee. Najee gets hurt. We got a league winner there. I grabbed Desmond Ridder as insurance just in case. Late tight end combo works, man. Jake Ferguson and Luke Musgrave. I think we're going to get 8 to 10 points per game there from those 2. And then Ty Chandler, my walk-off pick here. If you need a kicker or defensive recommendation, I really like the New Orleans Saints. They have the easiest schedule for the entire season. The Ravens have a great week 1 matchup, and so do the Washington Commanders. Otherwise, for kicker, just get a dome kicker. I like the Lions guy a lot. Don't mind the Cowboys kicker. I'm looking for high-scoring offenses that are kicking indoors most of the season. So there you go. That is my 16-team Superflex mock draft. This was a lot of fun. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And yeah, guys.